Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India, India's voice to the world. I'm Mark Lin. Namaskar. Coming up in News Hour. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his New Zealand counterpart Christopher Luxon hold bilateral talks in New Delhi, exchange 6 MOUs ranging from sports to defence cooperation. Prime Minister Narendra Modi to inaugurate the Raisina Dialogue, India's flagship conference on geopolitics and geoeconomics. US President Trump shares Prime Minister Modi's podcast with Lex Fridman on his Truth Social account. The US President Trump says that he and Putin will discuss land and power plants during Ukraine's ceasefire talks on Tuesday. And the US deports 238 alleged members of a Venezuelan gang, Tren de Aragua. In fact, they've been sent back to El Salvador. Prime Minister Narendra Modi held talks with his New Zealand counterpart Christopher Luxon at the Hyderabad House in New Delhi. The discussions covered various aspects of the India-New Zealand relationship. The Prime Minister of India and his New Zealand counterpart also held delegation-level talks, and the leaders witnessed the exchange of MOUs on sports, horticulture and defence, letter of intent on forestry, agreement on customs and exchange on education. Also, the Prime Minister Luxon this time, his visit aims to strengthen bilateral relationship between India and New Zealand, reaffirming the commitment to deepen bilateral ties across all sectors and to foster people-to-people connections. Earlier, Prime Minister Luxon laid a wreath at Rajghat and paid tributes to Mahatma Gandhi. The New Zealand Prime Minister arrived in New Delhi on Sunday on a 5-day visit to India. He is accompanied by a high-level delegation which includes ministers, senior officials, businessmen, media and also members of the Indian diaspora community. He will call on President Draupadi Murmu at the Rashtrapati Bhavan. He will also visit Mumbai, where he will have interactions with business leaders. Prime Minister Luxon will also be the chief guest. He is the keynote speaker at the Raisina Dialogue 2025. And Akshay Dongre now joins us on the phone line. He was there witnessing the signing of agreements as well as the statements made by the two prime ministers. Summarize that for us, Akshay. Put into context what this relationship means for both the leaders currently.
Well, India and New Zealand have had a warm relations, Mark, but this new era in the relations in the two countries is extremely different from the previous relations we have had with the leadership of New Zealand. And in fact, as far as the vision of Prime Minister is concerned, the kind of push that has been given to India's foreign policy as far as our oceanic neighbors are concerned, it is unprecedented. In fact, it was just a few days back, Prime Minister was making a push strengthening relations with the Mauritian government, and now it's the New Zealand
Right.
Prime Minister is here. He will be the keynote speaker at the Raisina Dialogue, and the Prime Minister of New Zealand is in India for 4 days. Along with Prime Minister, there is a huge delegation that has come. That was also mentioned by the Prime Minister as far as his speech is concerned while he addressed the media from India and from New Zealand as well. So both of the countries have shared concerns when it comes to freedom of movement, security, piracy and other kind of challenges that are there in the Indian Ocean region. And New Zealand, especially being an island nation, it is solely dependent on trade through the oceanic route as far as the country's economy is concerned. So clearly, India being the resident power in the Indian Ocean region holds a very important place, and New Zealand does realize that, and therefore, apart from the other agreements that have been signed between the two countries, is also an MOU on operation, and the focus will also be on maritime security of the Indian Ocean region. New Zealand is also important in India's vision, not just in the Indian Ocean region, but also in the Indo-Pacific, where there have been certain challenges that have been rising up as far as freedom of movement and certain difficulties when it comes to China are concerned. So both the countries have shared opportunities along with shared challenges.
Yes, indeed.
They wish to fulfill and work on together in cooperation.
Yes, Akshay, also, if we look at the signals of intent, apart from these MOUs, there is the intention now to reach an FTA and negotiations are going to start after a 10-year gap. Put this also into context for us.
Well, absolutely, and that perhaps is one of the highlights of the visit of the New Zealand Prime Minister. And as far as the FTA is concerned, Prime Minister very specifically mentioned that the FTA signed between the two countries will be a mutually beneficial one. So the talks have started, and that is a significant step as far as the free trade agreement talks are concerned between the two countries. Now, there is a lot that India can export to New Zealand. There is a lot it can import as well, and vice versa for New Zealand too. India is a growing market, and besides the free trade agreement discussions that have resumed after a long gap, we can also expect cooperation in various other fields too. For example, education. There will be a tourism sector that can be developed by New Zealand. The New Zealand Prime Minister spoke about developing India's education sector as well and cooperating in that. So apart from the free trade agreement, a lot is lined up in the 4-day visit of the New Zealand Prime Minister.
We leave it there. Thank you very much, Akshay Dongre, for putting that into context for us. Now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will inaugurate the Raisina Dialogue. That's India's flagship conference on geopolitics and geoeconomics. That's happening today. It's the 10th edition of this famous dialogue, and it's going to be held from the 17th to the 19th of March in New Delhi. Prime Minister of New Zealand, Christopher Luxon, will join the inaugural session as the chief guest. He's also going to deliver the keynote address. It's hosted annually in New Delhi by the Observer Research Foundation in collaboration with the Ministry of External Affairs of India. The dialogue brings together world leaders, policymakers, diplomats, scholars, and business executives. They are discussing contemporary global challenges. This year, the theme is Kala Chakra, People, Peace, and Planet. Also, over 3,500 participants from about 125 countries are going to be joining the dialogue in person. And over the years, the dialogue has emerged as a key platform, in fact, shaping India's strategic engagements on the world stage. Yes, and Jessica Taneja is covering this event for us. Jessica, so it's the 10th edition of the Raisina Dialogue. Expand on us the theme and what is expected from the discussions.
Well, as you pointed out, Mark, we're going to see leaders and strategic thinkers as well as academics and various other foreign ministers, both current and former, joining in for India's premier flagship conference on geoeconomics and geopolitics. And this year's theme, as you pointed out, is going to sort of explore into various aspects of the current themes and the current developments around the world, particularly if we talk about the conflicts taking place, and also how to find a place which sort of prevents countries from getting involved, particularly into the idea of the current climate of geoeconomics, also given how the American trade war has kicked off. In the backdrop of that, there is apparently a lot to discuss for all the strategic thinkers gathered in New Delhi today, and it will continue for the next 2 days, but expect a lot to come up, especially when it comes to how to further align in the face of the current trade climate, so to say, and not just geopolitics, but how various countries can come together and come to an understanding and strengthen ties amid what we see, be it conflicts or be it the current tariff war that has been ongoing.
So the tariff war, also there are going to be military commanders present, so that's an important discussion also to take place. And with the New Zealand Prime Minister as the chief guest, one would presume that maritime security will be in focus.
That's correct, because the part where we discuss the Indo-Pacific strategy as well as India's role in the region, of course, remains prominent, and you see South Asian countries and the representatives from Bhutan, from Maldives, from Nepal are also present in the national capital, along with, of course, the New Zealand Prime Minister, who's on a 5-day state visit to India. Certainly goes on to highlight the kind of issues that are going to come up, especially when we talk about maritime security and aligning those interests in the face of how it is, or in the face of how the current geopolitical climate is, and the trade routes that continue to be threatened either by piracy or illegal activities. So, of course, a lot to be discussed, especially when it comes to building, supply chains, integrated supply chains. So, of course, a lot to be discussed even on the sidelines of the Raisina dialogue for various leaders.
Okay, we leave it there for the moment. Thank you very much, Jessica Taneja, for joining us with those inputs. India's External Affairs Minister Jai Shankar has started his Raisina 2025 engagements, which marks the beginning of a series of diplomatic meetings. The minister met DPM and Foreign Minister, the Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Tanja Fajon of Slovenia, and appreciated her assessment on the current UN Security Council situation. They are a UN Security Council member, and also on global challenges. He also met his Swedish counterpart, Maria Stenergard, and they also held discussions on deepening India's engagement with the EU. The US Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, met the Defense Minister Rajnath Singh in New Delhi today. The leaders discussed a wide range of issues which include defense and information sharing, aiming to further deepen the India-US partnership. Still to come here on DD India News Hour. Russia underscores its demand that Ukraine should be excluded from NATO. A 7-day period of mourning is taking place in Macedonia. This is after a nightclub fire has left 59 dead. And tornadoes, strong winds and dust storms claim at least 37 lives in the United States. Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy, always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the Economic Brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Mark Lin. The US President Donald Trump said that he plans to speak to the Russian President Vladimir Putin on Tuesday. Trump confirmed the news while talking to reporters on board Air Force One. He termed the forthcoming talks a good chance to end the 3-year-old conflict.
We have something to announce maybe by Tuesday. I'll be speaking to President Putin on Tuesday. And a lot of work's been done over the weekend. We want to see if we can bring that war to an end. Maybe we can, maybe we can't, but I think we have a very good chance.
The U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff told a U.S. news agency on Sunday after returning from what he described as a positive meeting with Putin in Moscow. Well, updates now on the Russia-Ukraine conflict, and Russia has underscored its demand that Ukraine be excluded from NATO membership and also maintain a neutral stance in any prospective peace agreement. The Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Alexander Grushko, in a statement, emphasized the importance of including stringent security guarantees in a peace accord. Grushko detailed that Russia expects these guarantees to ensure Ukraine's neutral status and to prevent NATO countries from integrating it into their alliance, seeking robust assurances as part of the diplomatic negotiations. The Deputy Foreign Minister's statements were published by Russian media outlet Izvestia. It also reflects Russia's firm position on Ukraine's geopolitical alignment with the broader security dynamics in the region. The Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky on Sunday appointed Major General Andrei Huntnov as the Ukrainian Chief of the General Staff, as Kiev has now sought to speed up army reform. Speaking after his nightly video address, Zelensky said that Natov would be tasked with making Ukrainian troops more combat ready.
I made personal changes in the armed forces of Ukraine together with Commander-in-Chief Olinder Syrsky and the Ministry of Defense Rustem Umbrov. We decided that the new Chief of the General Staff will be Andriy Natov, a combat guy. His task is to maximize combat experience of our brigades in planning both defensive and offensive operations, as well as to actively develop the corps system.
Zelensky also said that he has spoken to Canada's new Prime Minister Mark Carney and discussed sanctions on Russia and the G7 foreign ministers meeting that took place in the remote tourist town of La Mabe in Canada on Saturday. Lithuania on Sunday backed a European Union proposal to pledge up to 40 billion euros in military aid for Ukraine this year, with a similar amount needed in the future to deter Russia-Ukraine conflict. The Lithuanian foreign minister emphasized that sustaining this funding would help Ukraine maintain its military strength. His comments, they came ahead of the EU foreign ministers meeting in Brussels, which will discuss the proposal amid uncertainty over US negotiations with Russia and Washington's future support for Ukraine. Despite some cautious EU responses, the foreign minister stressed that Ukraine's military must remain strong regardless of peace talks. Lithuania remains a key ally of Ukraine and a top European defense spender. In a bold move, the US has deported 238 alleged members of the infamous Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua to El Salvador, where they are going to be placed in one of the country's most secure prisons. This marks a new chapter in the US crackdown on transnational gangs. Aarti Rana reports.
On Sunday, a flight carrying 238 members of the infamous Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua landed in El Salvador, where they were immediately taken to a high-security prison. But the deportation isn't just a routine handover. The US government is invoking a law from 1798 known as the Alien Enemies Act, rarely used in modern history, to bypass the courts and deport these gang members with lightning speed. The Trump administration calls it a critical measure to protect national security. President Trump, using the Alien Enemies Act, has justified these actions, labeling the Tren de Aragua gang as an invasion, targeting the US. He argues the group's criminal activities pose an existential threat.
That was a bad group. When you look at them and you look at the crimes that they've committed, you take a look. You don't get any tougher, you don't get worse than that. You understand that. So. But you'd have to ask the Lord. And these are criminals, many, many criminals. Murderers, drug dealers at the highest level, drug lords, people from mental institutions. That's an invasion.
The deportations took place despite a US federal judge granting a temporary suspension of the expulsions order. White House denied that the court order was not implemented, saying the plane had already left the United States by the time. Civil rights groups are now sounding the alarm, calling the use of this historic law to justify mass deportation and abuse of the power.
The Alien Enemies Act was enacted in 1798, and it's a wartime authority that can only be used when the United States is in a declared war with another nation or another nation is invading our country. It cannot be used against simply a gang. And notably, it's only been used 3 times in our country's history, all during declared wars: the War of 1812, World War I, and World War II.
With legal challenges already in place, the fight over the Alien Enemies Act could redefine the future course of US immigration policy. El Salvador President Nayib Bukele sent the alleged gang members to the country's maximum security terrorism confinement center, which is a mega prison southeast of capital San Salvador with a capacity for 40,000 prisoners. Aarti Rana for DD India.
And besides talking about his talks with Putin and the deportation of Venezuelans, President Trump also stated his stand on reciprocal tariffs, confirming that reciprocal tariffs, including duties on automobiles, will be imposed starting April 2nd. He also confirmed that these reciprocal tariffs, they will apply to both friends and foes of the United States.
I have no intention of it, no. April 2nd is a liberating day for our country. We're going to be getting back some of the wealth that very, very foolish presidents gave away because they had no clue what they were doing. And April 2nd, I would have made it April 1st, but you know what April 1st is? April Fool's Day. I figured, I don't like doing it, but I made it April 2nd. But it's a liberation day for our country because we're going to be getting back a lot of the wealth that we so foolishly gave up to other countries, including friend and foe.
On steel and aluminium tariffs, Trump said that he will not create exemptions. Last month, Trump implemented a flat 25% tariff on steel and aluminium imports as part of his strategy to support U.S. industries and escalate the trade war. North Macedonia has declared a 7-day period of mourning after a fire in a nightclub left at least 59 dead and scores injured. Authorities have detained 15 people for questioning, and the Interior Minister said a preliminary inspection revealed that the club was operating without a proper license. Let's look at this report.
A devastating fire broke out in a nightclub in North Macedonia's Koshania earlier on Sunday, killing 59 people and injuring more than 100. The fire broke out at the early hours of Sunday during a concert attended by some 1,500 people at a nightclub in Koshania. The fire was triggered by fireworks set off on the stage. Most of the victims were between the age group of 14 to 27 and suffered injuries from the stampede that occurred in the panic while trying to exit. Officials say about 148 people were hospitalized in the capital Skopje, Košumlija and in surrounding towns, as well as being taken to neighboring countries for treatment. 70 patients had burns and carbon monoxide poisoning.
We treated about 70 patients here. Unfortunately, there were also deceased persons. The patients had burns and carbon monoxide poisoning. We gave them oxygen and examined them and treated their injuries.
Angry relatives waited outside the hospital for news of the victims of the fire.
After this tragedy, what do I need this life for? I don't need it. I had one child and I lost him. What do I need this life for anymore?
North Macedonia's Prime Minister, Christian Mikowski, said an investigation into the nightclub fire had found the club's license was not legitimate.
We have information that at the time of the disaster, the nightclub had a falsified license issued in March 2024 for a bribe. The document was issued illegally with the legal stamp of the economy minister and signed by the then officials of the same ministry. There are many questions there that the investigation should answer.
Interior Minister Pashe Toskowski said the organizers of the event and the owners of the venue had been arrested. More than 20 people were under investigation, 15 of whom were in police custody. The leaders of countries bordering North Macedonia, as well as European Union, offered condolences and support to the Balkan state. Anamika Pandey's report for DD India.
6 people have died in an expressway bridge collapse in Bangkok's Thailand. The collapse occurred during the construction phase. It's posed challenges to the authorities. Workers are using drilling techniques now to dismantle the structure while exercising extreme caution due to the instability of some steel components. A severe weather system struck the United States over the weekend, claiming at least 37 lives due to tornadoes, strong winds and dust storms. President Trump confirmed the National Guard's deployment in Arkansas and offered support to local authorities. Here's the report.
An intense weather system hit parts of United States over the weekend, bringing violent tornadoes, high winds and dust storms, leaving at least 37 people dead. The storm lasted from Friday to Sunday. National Weather Service reported that tornado watches remained in effect for parts of the Carolinas, eastern Georgia and northern Florida, with the possibility of more tornadoes still on the horizon. President Donald Trump said he was monitoring the tornadoes and storms and announced the National Guard had been deployed to Arkansas and pledged help to state and local officials. In Alabama, at least 3 people were killed by multiple tornadoes, and a recreation center sheltering over 200 people in Troy was heavily damaged. Missouri also experienced deadly twisters, claiming at least a dozen lives. The storm killed 6 people in Mississippi and caused significant damage in Arkansas. The storm fueled wildfires in Oklahoma, where over 130 fires were reported, killing 2 people and damaging nearly 300 homes. Texas saw deadly dust storms with 8 deaths in a Kansas highway pileup and 3 more in Amarillo car crashes. As authorities continue to sift through the wreckage, the risk of further tornadoes, wildfires and dust storms remains high, with emergency teams aiding the affected areas. Residents are urged to stay vigilant as conditions may worsen. Kajal's report for DD India.
A pair of US astronauts who have been stuck there in space for more than 9 months on the International Space Station are going to be returned to Earth on Tuesday evening. Butch Wilmore and Sunitha Williams are to be transported home with another American astronaut and a Russian cosmonaut aboard a SpaceX crewed Dragon craft, which arrived at the International Space Station early on Sunday. The stranded duo have been on the International Space Station since June after the Boeing Starliner spacecraft that they were testing on its maiden crewed voyage suffered propulsion issues and was deemed unfit to fly them back to Earth. The NASA astronaut Nick Hague and Roscosmos cosmonaut Alexander Gurbanov will also return on the Dragon capsule, with the journey to be broadcast live from Monday evening when hatch closure preparations begin. For Wilmore and Williams, it will mark the end of an ordeal that has seen them stuck for 9 months after what was meant to be just a few days in space. Okay, still to come here on DD India News Hour. Prime Minister Modi reiterates India is firmly committed to peace in his podcast with Lex Fridman, an AI researcher. India's Department of Telecom has announced a 5G Innovation Hackathon 2025.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Mark Len. Here's a recap of our main stories. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his New Zealand counterpart Christopher Luxon hold bilateral talks in New Delhi. The two sides exchanged 6 MOUs ranging from sports to defence cooperation. Prime Minister Narendra Modi to inaugurate the Raisina Dialogue, India's flagship conference on geopolitics and geoeconomics. US President Trump shares Prime Minister Modi's podcast with Lex Fridman on his social media account, Truth Social. US President Trump says that he and Putin will discuss land and power plants during Ukraine ceasefire talks on Tuesday. Now we get you further details on the top story that we are tracking here on DD India News Hour. Prime Minister Narendra Modi today held talks with his New Zealand counterpart Christopher Luxon at the Hyderabad House in New Delhi, and the two sides discussed the bilateral relationship at length, followed by an exchange of 6 MOUs which range from sports, horticulture, forestry, defence cooperation, customs to education. So addressing a press meet after that, alongside the visiting dignitary, Prime Minister Modi said that he had detailed discussions on various aspects of bilateral relations, adding that both the leaders have decided to strengthen and institutionalize defense and security partnership.
दोनों देशों के बीच एक परस्पर लाभकारी फ्री ट्रेड एग्रीमेंट पर नेगोशिएशंस शुरू करने का निर्णय लिया गया है। इससे आपसी व्यापार और निवेश के पोटेंशियल को बढ़ावा मिलेगा। डेयरी, फूड प्रोसेसिंग और फार्मा जैसे क्षेत्रों में आपसी सहयोग और निवेश को प्रोत्साहित किया जाएगा। रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी और क्रिटिकल मिनरल क्षेत्रों में आपसी सहयोग को हमने प्राथमिकता दी है। फॉरेस्ट्री और हॉर्टिकल्चर में संयुक्त रूप से काम किया जाएगा। मुझे विश्वास है कि प्रधानमंत्री के साथ आए बड़े बिजनेस डेलीगेशन को भारत में नई संभावनाओं को देखने और समझने का अवसर मिलेगा।
Referring to the Christchurch terror attack of the 15th of March 2019 and the Mumbai attack of the 26th of November 2008, Prime Minister Narendra Modi said that terrorism in any form is unacceptable.
आतंकवाद के खिलाफ हम दोनों एक मत हैं। चाहे 15 मार्च 2019 का क्राइस्ट चर्च आतंकी हमला हो या 26 नवंबर 2008 का मुंबई हमला, आतंकवाद किसी भी रूप में अस्वीकार्य है। आतंकी हमलों के दोषियों के खिलाफ कड़ी कार्रवाई आवश्यक है। आतंकवादी, अलगाववादी और कट्टरपंथी तत्वों के खिलाफ हम मिलकर सहयोग करते रहेंगे। इस संदर्भ में न्यूजीलैंड में कुछ गैर कानूनी तत्वों द्वारा भारत विरोधी गतिविधियों को लेकर हमने अपनी चिंता साझा की। हमें विश्वास है कि इन सभी गैर कानूनी तत्वों के खिलाफ हमें न्यूजीलैंड सरकार का सहयोग आगे भी मिलता रहेगा।
Prime Minister Modi said that India believes in a policy of development and not expansionism, and he said that India and New Zealand support a free, open, secure and prosperous Indo-Pacific.
फ्री, ओपन, सिक्योर और प्रॉस्परस इंडो पैसिफिक का हम दोनों समर्थन करते हैं। हम विकासवाद की नीति में विश्वास रखते हैं, विस्तारवाद में नहीं। इंडो पैसिफिक ओशन इनिशिएटिव से जुड़ने के लिए हम न्यूजीलैंड का स्वागत करते हैं। इंटरनेशनल सोलर अलायंस के बाद CDRI से जुड़ने के लिए भी हम न्यूजीलैंड का अभिनंदन करते हैं।
The Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi held a podcast interview with the AI researcher and US-based podcaster Lex Fridman on Sunday, and he said that he stressed, in fact, that India is not neutral but firmly committed to peace. Prime Minister Modi emphasized that the world listens whenever India speaks of peace. He referred to the Russia-Ukraine conflict and said that India has close ties with both countries and said that India is not neutral in this conflict, reiterating that India stands with peace.
मेरा रशिया के साथ भी घनिष्ठ संबंध है, यूक्रेन के साथ भी घनिष्ठ संबंध है। मैं राष्ट्रपति पुतिन के सामने बैठ करके मीडिया को कह सकता हूं कि युद्ध का समय नहीं है, और मैं जेलेंस्की को भी एक मित्र भाव से उनको भी कहता हूं कि भाई दुनिया कितनी ही आपके साथ खड़ी क्यों न हो जाए, युद्ध भूमि में कभी भी परिणाम नहीं निकलने वाला है। परिणाम तो टेबल पर ही निकलने वाला है, और टेबल पे परिणाम तब निकलेगा जब उस टेबल पर यूक्रेन और रशिया दोनों मौजूद होंगे। पूरी दुनिया यूक्रेन के साथ बैठ करके कितनी माथापच्ची कर ले, उसे परिणाम नहीं आता है। दोनों पक्षों का होना जरूरी है, और शुरू में समझा नहीं पा रहा था, लेकिन आज जो इस प्रकार का वातावरण बना है उससे मुझे लगता है कि अब रशिया यूक्रेन, मैं आशावादी हूं कि बहुत उन्होंने खुद ने तो गंवाया है, दुनिया का बहुत नुकसान हुआ है। ग्लोबल साउथ को सबसे ज़्यादा नुकसान हुआ है। पूरे विश्व में फूड, फ्यूल एंड फर्टिलाइजर उसका संकट रहा है। तो पूरा विश्व चाहता है जल्दी से जल्दी शांति हो, और मैं हमेशा कहता हूँ कि मैं शांति के पक्ष में हूँ, मैं न्यूट्रल नहीं हूँ, मैं शांति के पक्ष, मेरा एक पक्ष है और मैं उसके लिए प्रयत्नरत हूँ।
Prime Minister Modi also highlighted the current geopolitical scenario around the world, addressing issues such as Pakistan's state-sponsored terrorism along with the India-China relationship. He spoke about Pakistan, and Prime Minister stated that every attempt by India to foster peace was met with hostility and betrayal.
प्रॉक्सी वॉर चल रहा है। अब ये कोई आइडियोलॉजी नहीं है, आइडियोलॉजी ऐसी थोड़ी होती है, लोगों को मारो काटो, टेररिस्टों को एक्सपोर्ट करने का काम चल रहा है। और सिर्फ हमारे साथ ही नहीं, अब दुनिया में कहीं पर भी टेररिस्ट की घटना घटती है तो कहीं न कहीं सूत्र पाकिस्तान जाकर के अटकते हैं। अब देखिए 9/11 इतनी बड़ी घटना घटी अमेरिका में, उसका मेन जो सूत्रधार था ओसामा बिन लादेन, वो आखिर में कहाँ से मिला? पाकिस्तान में ही शरण लेके बैठा था। तो दुनिया पहचान गई है कि ये प्रकार से आतंकवादी प्रवृत्ति, आतंकवादी मानसिकता, और वो सिर्फ भारत ही नहीं, दुनिया भर के लिए परेशानी का केंद्र बन चुका है। और हम लगातार उनको कहते रहे कि इस रास्ते से किसका भला होगा, आप आतंकवाद के रास्ते को छोड़ दीजिए, ये स्टेट स्पॉन्सर्ड टेररिज्म जो है वो बंद होना चाहिए, नॉन स्टेट एक्टरों के हाथ में सब छोड़ दिया है, क्या होगा फायदा। और इसकी शांति के प्रयासों के लिए मैं खुद लाहौर चला गया था। मेरे प्रधानमंत्री बनने के बाद मैंने मेरे शपथ समारोह में पाकिस्तान को स्पेशली इनवाइट किया था ताकि एक शुभ शुरुआत हो, लेकिन हर बार हर अच्छे प्रयासों का परिणाम नकारात्मक निकला।
Prime Minister Narendra Modi emphasized the importance of strengthening ties between India and China despite past tensions. He advocated for dialogue over discord and cooperation over conflict as the way forward.
2020 में जो सीमा पर जो घटनाएं घटी उसके कारण हमारे बीच स्थितियां काफ़ी दूरी की बन गई, लेकिन अभी राष्ट्रपति श्री के साथ मेरा मिलना हुआ, उसके बाद सीमा पर जो चीज़ें थी उसमें नॉर्मल से आ चुकी हैं। 2020 के पहले की स्थिति में हम लोग अब काम कर रहे हैं। अब धीरे धीरे वो विश्वास और वो उत्साह और उमंग और ऊर्जा वापस आ जाए, वो उसको थोड़ा समय लगेगा कि बीच में 5 साल का अंतराल गया है। हमारा साथ होना ना सिर्फ बेनिफिशियल है बल्कि ग्लोबल स्टेबिलिटी और प्रॉस्पेरिटी के लिए भी जरूरी है। और जब 21वीं सदी एशिया की सदी है तो हम तो चाहेंगे कि भारत चीन के बीच में स्पर्धा सब स्वाभाविक है, स्पर्धा कोई गलत चीज नहीं है, ये संघर्ष नहीं होना चाहिए।
The Indian Prime Minister also threw light on his bond with US President Donald Trump during the podcast.
जब मैं व्हाइट हाउस पहुंचा पहली मिनट में उन्होंने सारे वो प्रोटोकॉल की दीवारें तोड़ दी एकदम से, और फिर जब उन्होंने पूरा व्हाइट हाउस में घुमाने ले गए और मुझे दिखा रहे थे और मैं देख रहा था उनके हाथ में कोई कागज नहीं था, कोई पर्ची नहीं था, कोई साथ में कोई व्यक्ति नहीं था। मेरे लिए वो बहुत बड़ा इम्प्रेसिव था कि ये इंस्टीट्यूशन को कितना ऑनर करते हैं। और मैंने देखा कि जब वो पहले टर्म के बाद वो चुनाव बाइडेन जीते तो ये 4 साल का समय हुआ। मेरा और उनको बीच में जानने वाला कोई व्यक्ति उनको मिलता था तो इन 4 साल में नहीं तो 50 बार उन्होंने कहा होगा, मोदी इज माय फ्रेंड, कन्वे माय रिगार्ड्स।
Meanwhile, the US President Donald Trump has shared a link of this interview, the Prime Minister Narendra Modi Lex Fridman podcast, in a social media post from his official account on the platform Truth Social. Let's take you now to other stories making news around the world. In fact, from India, an intense encounter is currently underway at the Krumbura area of Rajwar in Srinagar in the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. As security forces have engaged with terrorists in a fierce exchange of gunfire. According to intelligence inputs, 2 to 3 terrorists are believed to be trapped in the cordoned area. The area is sealed off and additional reinforcements have been deployed to ensure successful operation. The Mangaluru City Police have arrested 2 African women carrying 38 kilograms of methylene deoxymethamphetamine, which is worth about 75 crore Indian rupees, from Bengaluru in Karnataka on Sunday. The police claims that this drug seize is one of the biggest ever so far. The 2 women had been living in India since 2016 and 2020. 7 interstate illegal Bangladeshi immigrants were held in Delhi NCR under a special drive of the Delhi Police East District. The immigrants have entered India via river routes near the India-Bangladesh border and were residing at separate locations to evade detection. Their deportation process has been initiated with the assistance of the Foreigners Regional Registration Office. The Delhi Police has announced the formation of Shishtachar, anti-Eve teasing squads. They are to start patrolling public places across the national capital to enhance women's safety. The initiative aims to curb crimes against women, including Eve teasing, molestation, and other forms of harassment. The Department of Telecommunications has announced a 5G Innovation Hackathon 2025. It is a 6-month initiative aimed at accelerating the development of innovative 5G-powered solutions to address societal and industrial challenges. The program aims to enable participants to transform visionary ideas into scalable technologies. Still to come here on DD India News Hour. Germany heads a step closer to a new government. The Christian Democrats and the Social Democrats have agreed on a debt plan. Jaipur Delta has lifted the North India Polo Trophy yet again. And Hong Kong's flower show continues to attract locals and tourists alike. You're watching DD India News. I'm Mark Lin. 3 weeks after the election, Germany is now heading to form a new government. They are a step closer. The election-winning parties, that's the Christian Democrats and the Social Democrats, they seem to have agreed on a debt and budget plan, and they seem also to have a majority to get it through Parliament. So that means they are in government. Lars Holter is with Deutsche Welle, and he joins me now from Berlin. Well, Lars, what's the latest on the situation?
Thanks for having me. Well, it's been quite a weekend in Berlin. News came late Friday that significant progress had been made in those coalition talks. But let's backtrack just a bit here. The election in Germany happened on the same weekend and US President Trump's disastrous meeting with Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky. And so immediately after the election, politicians here realized that they were dealing with a new reality, including the need to spend a lot more on defense than really ever before. So election winner Friedrich Merz of the conservative Christian Democrats Party pulled a quick 180 and suggested to take on billions in new debt to invest in the military. To get their future coalition partner, the Social Democrats, on board, they threw in another couple of $100 billion for infrastructure. But taking on this level of debt needs an amendment to the constitutionally enshrined debt brake. So the parties figured it would be easier to ram it through the old parliament before establishing a new government. That is because the new government would likely not have been able to get enough votes for such a plan. Now, they just needed support of the Green Party, and after shorter talks than anyone could have imagined, they actually got them on board.
So what did it take then to get the Green Party on board? They've long been against it, after all.
Yes, that's right, and it was a rough few days too. The Green Party had long been vehemently against more debt for financing the military, but I guess they too know, of course, when something is absolutely necessary. They're also angry after the coalition parties had kept them sidelined for a while. But I guess they knew how to win the Greens over in the end. First of all, they've written in the constitutional amendment that all those billions in new debt can only be accessed after 10% of the country's regular budget has been spent on investments in infrastructure. And they've also made sure that 100 billion euros out of a total of 500 billion euros will be spent on the existing initiative of a Green New Deal style refurbishment of the German economy. Now that is money that will go into projects fighting climate change. It will go into subsidizing sustainable energy. It will help build up wind and solar and generally get Germany closer to its long agreed climate goals. That is something the Greens needed. Now they got something to show for, something that justifies their support for a budget policy that they would otherwise be blocking.
Well, I mean, with hundreds of billions of dollars in new debt and these conditions, is it really worth it?
Yes, it definitely is, and for several reasons. First of all, let's look at the global situation with the US bowing out of the Western Alliance, the UN, NATO, and the need for EU countries to step up. It's simply a reality that we have to shore up our military, support Ukraine, make sure we are protected when in need. So there's that. But there's also the economic side of the equation. For a long time now, economists have said that the best way to pull Germany out of its doldrums would be massive investments in infrastructure. It's the kind of spending that secures jobs, it props up industries and makes us more competitive globally. Sadly, it's also the kind of spending we haven't done for years, kicking the can down the road on the way too many projects here. Be that as it may, we're spending the money now with a good chance that it revives the economy in the end. For that, it's worth going deeper into depth. Also, lest we forget, Germany's debt to GDP ratio is still much lower than the EU average and than most other nations around the globe. So yes, this is a worthwhile plan.
Lars, thank you very much for being with us. Now you're watching DD India News Hour. Let's get to the sports news quickly. The BMC Advisors Northern India Polo Championship 2025 came to an end with a thrilling finale on Sunday. But the defending champions, Jaipur Delta, have lifted the trophy once again, and in a spectacular display of skill and sportsmanship, the tournament is going to inspire several generations. Let's watch.
In a spectacular display of skill and sportsmanship, the BMC Advisors Northern India Polo Championship 2025 culminated in a thrilling finale at the Jaipur Polo Ground in New Delhi on Sunday. The match saw Jaipur Delta triumph over Crisil Jindal with a commanding score of 13-7, securing their second consecutive championship title. The day began with a ceremonial flourish as Rajas Sharma, renowned media personality and chief guest, inaugurated the match by throwing the ball into the lush green field under a bright sunny sky. Naveen Jindal, the Member of Parliament and an accomplished tennis player, shared his insights on the evolving competitive landscape of polo in India.
And I think there are thousands of people watching here. They all really enjoyed the game of polo. Polo is India's gift to the world. And I'm so happy to see that today thousands of people came and they really enjoyed the game. And polo is going places and polo is getting more popular by the day.
Following their victory, the Jaipur Delta team was honored in a grand ceremony. Padmanabh Singh, a prominent Indian polo player and a member of former royal family of Jaipur, reflected on his experience, highlighting the team's dedication and strategy.
आज बहुत बढ़िया अवसर है हमारी जो जयपुर डेल्टा की टीम है आज विजय रही एक बहुत बेहतरीन गेम खेला कैरिसल जिंदल टीम ने पर आज हमारी टीम ने जो प्रदर्शन दिया वो एक बहुत बेहतरीन लेवल का था और मुझे बहुत खुशी होती है कि आज हमारी जो टीम है वो हम जीते आज.
The event was attended by distinguished guests including the Peru foreign minister and several other dignitaries who were captivated by the thrilling match. The crowd was equally enthralled, cheering on the teams with infectious enthusiasm.
Well, I'm really honored to be invited to today's match, which I understand is the last match of this polo season here in Delhi, in India. I arrived this morning, especially invited by the Indian government to participate in the Raisina dialogue. No?
So today the match has a lot of power and seeing Jaipur Delta playing so well, all the goals I think are going fantastic.
And of course it's a beautiful game today, sunny afternoon. I hope everyone enjoys the game.
I am very enjoying here. It is so fun.
The BMC Northern India Polo Championship boasts a rich legacy spanning over a century, now in its 103rd year. This prestigious tournament continues to inspire new generations of polo players, fostering growth and recognition for the sports in India. Faiz Khan's report for DD India.
And featuring an exuberant display of blooms from around the world, Hong Kong's flower show continues attracting locals and tourists alike. The 10-day-long festival is themed Ablaze with Glory. The main attraction of this floral display is a lush tapestry of various colors of tulips. The show that features 81 exhibitors from 11 other countries will come to an end on the 23rd of this month. And that brings us to an end on DD India News Hour. Thanks for watching. And if you are on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from our mobile app, which is available on Android and iOS platforms. Scanning the QR code, you can download it. Thanks again, once again, for watching DD India News Hour. Namaskar.